Yeah, I guess we can start now. So once again, welcome everyone to the first Identity Server community call for the year 2022. So for those who are joining the community call for the first time, so this is a monthly call that we have usually in the last Thursday of the month. So so this is the first one for the year 2022, and we have like an exciting set of sessions planned for today, as well as a few blogs that we have picked from the month of December last year. And yeah, once again, like, so this community call usually would be like available on YouTube, so you can join the YouTube link and watch the community call and use the YouTube chat, like if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to like communicate with us. And also like you can also join us for those who like joining using the Zoom link. So you can post your questions on Zoom chat. We'll be taking the questions once the like the planned agenda is over. And so all the community call, all the past community calls, like the recordings and all the agenda, and also the resources that were used during the community call, those are available in this GitHub repo, WSO2 in the WSO2 org IS community call. So if you head over here, you'll be able to see the past community calls for the year 2020, 21, and so on. And also like there are a few links that like we have put here. For example, our Slack channel, where you can join the Slack channel and interact with the team. Also follow the Twitter account, where we usually share all things related to identity server, but not just identity server, even interesting stuff related to IAM in general. Yeah, so without much ado, let's like look at our agenda. So as usual, I'll first go through the blogs that I've picked for this month, and once we are done with the blogs, so we'll have two sessions planned. So we have the session on how you can add authentication to a Next.js app with Identity Server by Dimutu. And we also have a session on like how you can configure single sign-on for Meta Workplace, like which is the Facebook workspace. That will be done by Ashin. Yeah. So first, so the first blog I picked was written by Tevi. So it's around the best practices for like OpenID Connect authentication in single page application. So you like, if you are like very, if you are someone who's like been following the latest trends and so on, like for the past few years, like there's a rapid like popularity for this single page application. So uh, part of the reason is that like it gives better user experience when you consider with the typical multi-page applications. And like so usually the user experience and like security, they don't go hand in hand. Like so if one like overtakes or dominates, the other aspect usually like goes down. But like in this blog, so TV kind of takes us through like this trend, and how like the OpenID Connect is kind of like the go-to protocol, like or go-to mechanism when securing a single page application. So he kind of takes us through different like strategies or different parts that you need to consider when you implement like when you try to secure a single page app using OpenID Connect. So this is good for someone who's like already having single page applications and thinking about security, as well as for somebody who is like thinking of developing a single page app. So so it's always good to plan with security in mind, rather than like plan security as an afterthought. So he takes us through like different parts of an application, like for example, session management, how like how you can do session management in like single page apps, and what are some of the like challenges or like security threats that happens, and some common mistakes, and also like then in the end he suggests some like solution for these challenges. So like as you go through the blogs, like you would see like there are some recommendations that's coming from the specs, and there are some best practices which he's explaining. So overall, like if you are somebody who is like interested in like knowing about security around single page application, this is a blog like I would recommend you to like take a look at and uh, learn a few stuff. So the next blog that we have picked for today is written by Anuradha. So here, like she takes like a very sought after or like a very common scenario that you see in websites these days. So earlier, like websites used like when you take sign up, the confirmation was usually done through email. But now, like with more mobile applications and like mobile usage when it comes to accessing services, now like the confirmation with SMS has become like a very native way for mobile users. So they don't, if you are consuming a service or signing up for a service using a mobile, most of the time, like if you use confirmation with emails, that's not like a very good experience for them. So here, like like so this blog is like kind of dishes out the details on like especially like how you can design this flow. So there are different options and different choices that you can make when you implement this like a registration confirmation using SMS. And also like so what I liked about this blog was it's not just about like dishing out the steps to say that how you can get something done, but also like it gives like a few internal details, like explains why something is done like that way. And also it's not just like a very concrete solution that she gives, like she gives a sort of framework or like a reference solution. But but you, if based on your needs, so you can also customize the flow. So yeah, she takes us through how you can do it using an how you can initiate self-registration with an API, and how you can configure a template for your SMS, and how you can like configure your SMS provider that you can use to send out the SMS. So, and also like the sample requests and responses. So overall, like so it's something that that's going to come in future, like as an out of the box feature. But if you are a user who is somebody using 5.10 of Identity Server, you can still get it done. So I think that's where she has explained all the steps for anyone who wants to try it from 5.10 onwards. Yeah, those were the two blogs that we picked. And so as I said, like so there are like there are plenty of blogs that have been written like in the past. So you can like go to this so we have linked those in the description, sorry, link those in the bookmark section of this repo. So you can head over to those blogs and like look at the past blogs that have been written. Yeah. So next, like I like introduced in initially, like we had two sessions that are planned for the day. So the first session that we are going to move ahead with is the session by Ashen. So he'll be like taking us through like how you can enable like single sign-on for Meta Workplace, or rather the Facebook Workplace. Yeah. So over to you, Ashen.
Okay. Thank you, Farah. So As Farah mentioned, today I'm going to talk about configuring single sign-on for Workplace by Meta with WSO2 Identity Server. So let me share my screen first. Okay, hope you can see my screen. Okay, let's see to workplace.com first. Right, so hope all of you are familiar with Facebook. So you are using Facebook to connect with all of your friends, families, and pretty much everyone in the world, right? So you can use it as a social network. So what is Workplace then? So the Workplace also provided by Facebook, or they have recently rebranded as Meta. So now it's called Workplace from Meta. So this is also a similar platform, communication platform like Facebook, but this is specifically designed for employees to work with your colleagues. Okay, so that's so you can visit the workplace.com and you can learn more about what this is about. So today I'm gonna quickly go through how you can, if you already have workplace or you are planning to use it, uh, how you can configure the single sign-on for this, because since it will be using in your working environment, the single sign-on would come in handy, since most of your application already have single sign-on configured with your identity provider. It can be WSO2 Identity Server, or it can be any other identity provider. Okay, so this is about workplace. So I'm gonna today I'm gonna refer this blog post. I have written this blog post few months ago. So this explain all the configuration steps you need to do to configure single sign-on for workplace. You can refer this blog as well if you want to know more information. So it will be shared in the YouTube chat as well. So, okay, so I have already set up my the identity server in my local machine. So it's running on idp.abc.com domain. So because like you can't use the local host to configure single sign-on with Workplace because it's not allowed. Therefore, you need to configure a domain for your identity server when to try it out. And then I have set up already. I have already set up a set of users to make it fast, and then I have already set up a place account as well. So for this, for the demonstration purpose, I have created the trial account, and then let's try to log in to Workplace account first. I'm gonna use this account, Shane at the armchaircritic.org email address. So this is the admin user of my Workplace. So when I click login, it will ask for the password because still I have not configured the single sign-on. So therefore I have to enter the password. So when I give the password, then you will be redirected to your Workplace account. So in your URL, if you notice, the URL will be a custom domain for your Workplace. So you can have that as well. So then that URL can be used to log in to all of your colleagues. Okay, so then if you see the Workplace space, that is also pretty much similar to Facebook. Okay, so if you are familiar with that, it will be easy for you. So I have already set up a set of users here in my Workplace account, and so before configuring SSO, I have to mention this. So you need to you need to configure domain, or else like rather you have to configure a verified domain in order to enable SSO. Otherwise, the SSO feature will not work. So the SSO is only provided in as a core feature by the workplace. So you need to have a core plan, so paid plan to enable SSO for that. So today I'm going to use using a trial account which has all the features. So here again, like as I mentioned, this is the domain I'm going to use. So all my users will have the email address with this domain, and I have already verified that domain. Okay, so then in this admin panel, if you go to the security section, so there's a tab called authentication. So there you can find the SSO provider configuration. So this is, if you click here, you will get this kind of configuration section, and there you have to add pretty much all the your SSO provider details. Okay, so before configuring the SSO provider, I'm going for the identity server and configure Workplace as a service provider. Okay, so if you're familiar with identity server, you know where to configure service providers. So I'm going to add a service provider here. Let's call Workplace, and then Workplace is only support the SAML protocol to configure single sign-on. So we have to use the SAML to WebSO single sign-on. So then let's see where we can find all this information, the issuer and the accession consumer URL and all the details. So let's move on to the workplace again. So here in this menu, you can see this all the details available. Okay, so as the issuer, we have to configure the audience URL in the workplace like this. And then we have the CS URL or the accession consumer URL. We can configure it here, and then this we can go with the default configuration, and we can enable response signing, but we have to disable the signature validation and authentication request and logout request, because the requests we are getting from authentication requests we are getting from workplace is not signed. They are not signed, so we have to disable it. And then we can basically enable single logout and enable attribute profile, because we need to send the attributes. And then we can, of course, enable audience restriction and recipient validation as well. So we can configure those URL there. Then, so I believe if you are familiar with WSO2 Identity Server, these are, so you may have already done this steps. So that's it from the service provider configuration. Then you have to register it. Okay, it's registered. Another important thing you have to do from the claim configuration section. So you have to select the subject claim URI as the email address, because so this is the subject we are sending in our SAML response, authentication response, to workplace side. So from the workplace side, they are validating whether this is the same email address they have in their side. Okay, so therefore you need to make sure you are sending the same email address of the user that you are going to single sign on to workplace side. So we are done with the service provider configurations, and now we can go back to the workplace site and try to configure the SSO provider. So when you click that, let's give a name here, and then SAML URL. Okay, so here also again you need to have the your identity provider's SAML URL and all the related information there, right? So you can go to WSO2 Identity Server resident identity provider, and then go to the inbound authentication configuration and SAML WebSSO configuration. And here all the relevant URLs are available, right? So we need the SSO URL, and I can, it's a SAML URL. So the issuer will be the entity ID of the WSO2 Identity Server. So this will be sent as the issuer in the SAML response. So we can configure it here, and we can enable the logout, of course. And then another thing is, like, we have to configure the WSO2 Identity Server, the server certificate here. Okay, so you can download it from here, the SAML metadata, and in the SAML metadata file, you can find the certificate actually. So inside the X509 certificate tab, you can just copy the content from here, and then you can just paste it in the workplace side. So yeah, that's it basically from the configurations. Then we have to test the single sign-on using the test SSO button. Uh, okay, so before save the changes, so we can use the same email address that I have used because I have the same user in the WSO2 Identity Server side. So here you can see Ashen at the Armchair Critic Corp. So then let's try to test the SSO. When you click this button, it will now redirect to the WSO2 Identity Server login page. Okay, so then you can enter the WSO2 Identity Server credentials here, and then it will successfully log in, and you can see the SSO authenticated. The message is there. Now it's properly configured. So you can close the window and save the changes here. So then from here you can enable the single sign-on for login. So here you have, again, you have a configuration to enable single sign-on for new users. You can, as for your requirement, you can do that. After that, so you have to make sure, like, you are enabling the SSO for a particular domain. As I previously mentioned, now I have a verified email domain, so we can assign that email domain from here. So only the verified domains will be available in this drop down. Okay, so now you can click save changes and save changes. And then again, there's one more thing, because like I'm using this account here, it is like previously it is configured for password authentication. Okay, so now I have to change that to SSO to make it work. Okay, now let's log out and try to log in again. Okay, I'm going for w2iemworkplace.com, and then I'm getting this kind of a page. So you can click the login with SSO button. Now you are redirected to the W2 Identity Server login page. Then you can click the admin credentials, my credentials there, and then you are successfully logged into Workplace with the credentials of W2 Identity Server. Right, so that's pretty much about the single sign-on configuration. That's very easy, and you can try it out. Also, so let's see, like, how it will work for a new user. So I already have a set of users here. Let's say I'm trying to log in as a new user. So let's add a new user here. Maybe Sam. Okay, Sam is added to W2 Identity Server. Let's try to log out, and because I have not configure that user in here. Let's say login SSO, and then I'm gonna give my new user credentials here. So now I'll have my new account set up. So from the workplace side, so I have logged in successfully. Since the user is not already there, so I am getting the like self registration page from here, and then we can click sign up. It will take a few minutes, and then your account is ready. So just like that, so it will so like this with this configuration, you can enable single sign-on for all of your users in your organization with the WSO2 Identity Server. Also, if you are interested, so I have enabled this SAML trace to show you the request and the responses. So this you will have this kind of authentication requests from the workplace side. So you have the issue the workplace.com, and then the ID server redirect to the ID server login page. After successful login, WSO2 Identity Server sending the SAML response, successful SAML response back to the workplace side. This is how it works. So here you can see the issuer is the ID server domain, and also the other thing is like subject. So this is the subject we are sending as the email address. So then it will validate from the workplace side, and they will allow to successfully log in for this particular user. So yeah, so I think that's all from me today. I hope you got some idea about how to configure single sign-on, and you can, of course, follow the blog post and try it out. Yeah, thank you for joining. Over to you, Farah.
Thank you, Ashin. So I think that was a very informative and like a very interactive session. So it had a, I think, pretty good demo as well. So if you have any questions on the session, or like if you want to know any details, any more details, so you can like post your questions on the YouTube link, or even in the Zoom chat. So let's move on to the next session. So next we'll have another hands-on session, like where Dimitri will take us on how you can build a Next.js app from scratch and add authentication to it using the WSO2 Identity Server. So yeah, Dimitri, I think you can go ahead.
Thank you, Farsa. So hi all. I am Dimitri Kasun from IM Custom Software team, and so let me share my screen. Okay, hope you can see my screen. So today I will show you how we can do the user authentication in Next.js applications with WSO2 Identity Server. So I will be using my this previous article about this user authentication in Next.js to cover all these steps that we need. So yeah, let's move on. So hope you have some idea about Next.js applications. Next.js is an open source React framework, and it's famous for the SEO capabilities it has. And we can also easily develop applications with server-side rendering, static site generation kind of features. And to demonstrate this scenario, I will use sample Next.js application. And also to enable the authentication in this sample application, I will use this Next.js library, which is a open source authentication solution for Next.js. and you can find the more details from this next.js.org website. Okay, moving on. Okay, yeah, if I give you some overall idea about what I'm going to do today. First, we need to create a service provider in Identity Server, and then I'll allow the CORS request from our sample application running origin localhost 3000 in Identity Server to as I'm going to invoke the scheme endpoint from our sample application. We need to add some configuration to the deployment YAML file to allow the CORS request, and then we can integrate the Next.auth library with our Next.js application, and then I'll create a home page. In there, I will invoke this scheme endpoint, and I will also display the decoded ID token and API response of this scheme endpoint, and also the logout button will be there. So yes, so this is the sample application I will try today. So if you check out this 1.0 branch, you can find the code without the Next.auth integration. So I have already set up this sample application, and let's see. Let's run the application and see what is how it look like. So this is the sample application, and currently it has one page as a landing page. So I will create a home page in few minutes. So yeah, moving on. Okay, so yeah, let's create a service provider in WSO2 Identity Server Management Console. So if you don't have any IS running, so you can find this. You can download the latest version from this Identity Server web page, and I have the 5.11 version of IS up and running. So I will skip this step, and yeah, let's log into the management console. You can use the super admin credentials to log in. Admin. So let's create a service provider here. I will name it as Next.js application. And if you check out the documentation, Next.auth documentation, it says that it supports auth 1.0, 2.0, and OpenID Connect protocols. So to configure our service provider, I will use this OpenID Connect protocol to configure our service provider. And here we need to specify the callback URL. So if you check out the documentation, you can find this. This is the format we need to follow when configuring the callback URL. In here, the origin would be localhost 3000, as our sample application is running on that 3000 port 3000. And I will name the provider as WSO2 IS for now, and I will explain why I name it as WSO2 IS in a few minutes. So let's configure the callback URL. Okay. Okay. You can find the client key and client secret value from here. I will use these values in a few minutes. So yeah, moving on. Okay, if you don't have any other users other than super admin, so you can follow this step to create new user. So as I have other one user other than the super admin, so I will also skip this step. Okay, next let's allow these CORS requests from our localhost 3000 origin. And because by default WSO2 IS will automatically block the API request from different origins, And as we are going to invoke this scheme endpoint in our application, we need to add this configuration here to the deployment YAML file. And you can find this deployment YAML file from repository conf direct. So I'll copy this content first. Yeah. Let's append this configuration. So next we need to restart the identity server. Okay, until that starts, let's move on. So next we can integrate the Next.js with our Next.js application. So yeah, I'll install the dependency first. Okay, so next we need to have some configurations like variables in our application. I am using this, sorry for that. I am using this environmental local file to store the client ID, client secret values. Let's add this client ID and client secret value from our service provider first, and I will explain the other properties in that configuration file, in that local file. So okay. Okay, next I am using requesting this scopes, internal login and OpenID scopes, where the internal login scope is needed required to invoke the scheme endpoint, and this OpenID scope is required for the next auth, and also as we are using this ID token, so we need to add this OpenID scope as well. So next, the WSO2 IS host, as I am running my IS in local machine, so the host will be localhost 9443, and the tenant name, as we created our application service provider in our super tenant, so the tenant name will be the carbon.super. So yeah, let's move on. Next we need to create this Next.auth file in this pages API auth directory, where this Next.auth file will be the place that we need to configure all the global Next.auth configurations. So I will copy this content first, and I will explain after that, after I created the page file. So okay, if I go through this, so this is the place we need to configure our WSO2 Identity Server as a custom provider. We need to add the configurations to this providers array, and when configuring the custom provider, we need to configure these properties here. So ID, I am naming it as WSO2 IS because if you remember, when we are configuring that callback URL in our service provider, so I have added that WSO2 IS as a provider name. So that name and this ID should be same, and that's why I have added this ID as WSO2 IS. And next, I have specified the name as WSO2 IS in here, and I am getting this client ID and client secret value from our environmental local file, and type will be the auth, and I have specified this well-known property, well-known endpoint here. If I show you this endpoint, you can find that the authorization endpoint and the token endpoint details are in this OpenID, well-known endpoint in our identity server. So if we specified this well-known property here. We don't need to separately add that authorization endpoint and token endpoint properties to this configuration. So yeah, next I have added this scopes into this authorization property as scope param. So next I have configured this auth profile in Next.auth. In here I have configured this ID attribute as the I am getting this profile submean that I am getting this sub attribute from ID token. So I am configured the ID as ID token sub property attribute. So this property, that ID property is mandatory, as if you want, you can like configure name or any other property as well in here. And as the ID is only the mandatory one, so I have specified that ID property only in here. Okay, next we have this secret property here. So this is not mandatory like for our scenario, but if we don't specify this in our configuration, when running the application, Next.auth will like show us a warning. So to avoid that, I have added this secret property here. And next important thing is this callbacks. So if I show you the documentation, callbacks are the asynchronous function that we can use to control what happens when some action is performed. So these are the callbacks in Next.auth: sign in, redirect, session, and JWT. And you can find more about callbacks from this documentation as well. So if I show you the code, I have used that this JWT and session callbacks because we need to access this access token and ID token from our pages or in our component. So this is the only way we can retrieve the access token and ID token, because we can't directly access this account model object from our page or in from our component. So to access that, we need to store this into the session here. So to do that, first we need to retrieve it from the account object and set it to this token object. And in the from this session callback, we need to retrieve it from this token object and then set it to the session object here. So this is the way we can get the access token and ID token and access it from our pages, as we need to show the ID token in our home page, and we need this access token to invoke the scheme endpoint. So next I have added this debug property here to see the debug logs when running the application. Okay, that's I think the important points I needed to cover. Okay, moving on with the blog. Okay, next we need to implement this sign in, sign out, and API invocation flows. First, I will go with this login button. It is in our header component. Okay, if I go to the editor, yeah, this is our button here. So let's add the on-click event, implement the on-click event. With the Next.auth, we just like it's really easy to initiate the sign-in flow. Yeah, we just like we just need to call this sign-in method from Next.auth of the library, and let's call this from here sign in. As a first argument, we can specify the ID of the provider that we need to initiate the sign-in flow with, as we need to log in with our WSO2 Identity Server. I will specify the ID as WSO2 IS. And next, we can configure the callback URL. Yeah, this is the place we can configure where should we redirect after the signing is completed, as we need to go to the home page after signing is completed. So I have added this callback as /home. So yeah, let's save and let's see that login button works. So yeah, okay. Okay, let's try. Yeah, I have another user, so I will log in with that user. Give the consent. Yeah, in here, as you can see, we have redirected to this home route, home path here. So that means the sign-in flow is completed and successful. So the 404 is expected as we don't have home page yet. So our next step would be to implement the home page. Yeah. So when implemented the pages, we need to add those pages in this pages directory. So like not like the React applications, like we don't need to map our route with our page. So because Next.js has file system based router, so it will take this name of the page and it will auto configure this route as this name of the page. So that's why I have added this callback as /home. That means because I am creating the file as home.txt. So let's create the file, and this will be the content of the file. And first I will copy this content, and next I will explain that this code after create the file. Okay. Okay. In here, I am using this content and ID token variables in state to store the content for the store the scheme endpoint response, and I am using this ID token to store the ID token variable to store the ID token retrieved from the session, and I am using this JSON Weaver component to show the decoded ID token and API response in our home page. And in this use effect hook, I am using this use effect hook to invoke this scheme endpoint, and I have added some conditions here. As I am implementing this home page as a protected page, I have added this condition where this if session is not there, we should initiate the sign-in flow. For example, if someone accesses this homepage directly through HTTP localhost 3000/home, so it should initiate this sign-in flow. And if session is there, we should retrieve the access token and ID token from session. And if you remember, we have stored the access token and ID token in session from our call using our callbacks here. So I am using this access token to invoke the scheme endpoint. I have used it in this header component, authorization header. And I am storing this ID token in the ID token variable in state. And then I have also added this code here to if we got any errors, so to sign out. So I will explain talk about more about this sign out method from our logout button when I'm explaining the logout button. Okay, if we go to the rendering part here, so if session is there and content is not null, that means after we received the API response, we should show the decoded ID token and API response in our home page. And if content is not there, so we should show this loading text here. And session is not there, so I am like showing this access denied and redirect to login text in home page. So the redirecting part will initiate by this this code here. This is the place I am checking, like the session is there. If not, I am initiating this sign-in flow from here. So redirecting part will done from here. So yeah, in here we have the logout button, and same like the sign in like login button, we just need to call this sign out button sign out method in Next.js to initiate the sign out flow. So in here I have added this forward slash, that mean as a callback. So that means we need to go to this go to our landing page after session is deleted. So that's the implementation here. Okay. Yeah. Next we have this get server side props function. This is the asynchronous function that we need to export from some page to enable the server side rendering for that page in Next.js. So what Next.js would do is it will call, like it will pre-render this page with the props returned from this method in this function. In here I am returning this session tenant and host values as props, and I am accessing these values in our function page as arguments here. And this is the I am also retrieving this access token and ID token from this session. And tenant and host variable I am using for the calling this endpoints, give me endpoint. Yeah, I think that's the important code I wanted to show. And yeah, moving on with the article. Yeah, let's check first our application works or not. So as you can see, it has like the decoded ID token here, and it's give me endpoint response. So let's check this lookup button works. Okay, it has redirected to this landing page here. So yeah. Okay, moving on. Okay, I have another important thing to cover here. That will be if you check this package.json file, I am using this dev command to run my application locally. So as you can see here, so I am using this dev script to run my application. So as if you check here that I am using this command node tls reject unauthorized 0 equals 0. So what this will do is this will disable the certificate verification. I have added this because by default WSO2 Identity Server will come with self-signed certificate, and when do the authentication is Next.js, so it will like complaining about this self-signed certificate and throw an error. So to avoid that, I am using this command to disable the certificate verification, and this is not recommended. Please note that this is not recommended for the production environment, as you need to use the CA sign certificates in Identity Server, so there will not be this kind of error. So if you use CA sign certificates in Identity Server, so yeah. Okay. Next, you can find the complete source code from the v2.0 branch from the same repository from my GitHub repositories. And Yeah. Also, if you check out this my blog, you can find the more details, and I also added some documentation links, extra documentation links in here as well. I think we have added this link to the chat also, so you can go get this link and check out. So yeah, I think that's it, and thank you guys. So I hope that you got some idea about how to do the authentication in Next.js applications with WSO2 Identity Server. So over to you, Faisal.
Yeah, thank you, Dimitu, and I think it was like a very hands-on kind of session from Dimitu, and so just wanted to remind, like, so the blogs related to, like, the blogs that he referred, like both by Dimitu and Ashen, are like linked in the agenda. So, and I think the blog will contain the sample and the GitHub link and so on. So if somebody wants to try out, I think that'll be a good place for you to go and refer. Yeah, we are coming towards the end of the community call. Before we move on to questions, like just a reminder, the next call will be on 24th, which will be the last Thursday of the month. And also, like if you like feel like there's something that you want to be like shown or demonstrated during the next session, so you can use this link and suggest any topics, like if you want a demo of a certain feature, or like if you want if you want something to be like discussed during the next community call, so this would be a good place where you can like contribute to the agenda. And yeah, I think we have a question from Bruno. So his first question is that whether it is possible to use WSO Identity Server to sync outbound users using external. Okay. So what the question, I guess. So Bruno, if you are in the call, you can like unmute and speak. Otherwise, like I'll take the call.
Oh yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good. No, it's just a simple question. If it's possible or even supported by WSO2 Identity Server to synchronize users created inside of WSO2 with an external system that supports Scheme v2 with only basic authentication. And the question can maybe be elaborated into aspects. First aspect, the most normal use case would be creating a user in a primary store. That would be a good use case. A second use case, and I'm not sure if it's really supported, is if the user is created in the secondary store that we have configured, how would that work in a scenario like that?
So the first question, so like typically like this will happen through like a provisioning connector. So once you create a user in WSO Identity Server, like you can engage a provisioning connector so that like that same user is like synced to the external system using that connector. Like as of now, we don't have a provisioning connector that supports Scheme v2. But we have a connector that you like that can support Scheme version 1. And I think the v2 one is kind of like in the roadmaps, but like it's still not available. But if you so so the direct answer is there's no outbound connector as of now, but there's the other option would be like so the outbound connector is kind of like an extension point. So if somebody wants, they can write a like using like similar to the Scheme v1 connector. They can like write an outbound connect extending that and implement one for the v2. And in the v1 connector, we do have support for this basic authentication. So basically, when you like call that second system or the second service, you have to have some sort of authentication. So as I remember, we supported basic authentication for that, but we did not like, so that was for Scheme version 1, not for version 2. The second question was around
Just a quick follow-up here. Can you please share this code in GitHub for the Scheme v1, please?
okay, yeah, GitHub.
Oh, it looks like the V2 is there already.
Yeah, I think it has been started. Yeah, sorry. So I wasn't like.
No,
Right.
okay.
All right.
It's not product by default.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah.
everything. So like it's not like kind of like advertised or like something that was like mentioned like in any release. So maybe this is something that's going to come in future. Like the last update has been like around last 200. Yeah. So
So
this
it's not a final one. The final one is the V1, right?
yeah, the final one, as the final as in like the one that is shipped now with the product is the one V1. That's the scheme.
Okay.
So like I said, like you can write an extension and like do the same thing. So this would be the way, like, so this is how you would write a.
Yeah. So if you are saying that in this case, if you compile this code that you are showing right now and package it and put it in a drop-ins, it will be loaded in the platform, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. So I'm not like exactly sure like which version this is compatible with, like whether it's like compatible with an old version or not, because the dependencies might change. But like, yeah, technically what you said should work as long as like let's say you build this and drop it on to a 5.11.0. If the dependencies like are satisfied, it will work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the explanation.
I'll drop the links onto the Zoom chat.
Yeah, the second question, I think it's also, I mean, in the same domain of scheme, and it's to ask if it's possible. I think yes, but the documentation was a little bit hard to find the right answers. If it's possible, while calling WSO2 IS as a scheme server in this case, and get the amount of users, get all the users, I mean, if that call can look up all the stores, meaning primary and secondaries, while a secondary store is of the type unique ID Active Directory user store manager.
So what you're saying is in Identity Server, you will have two user stores. One is primary and the second, like another secondary one, and the secondary one is of a type unique ID Active AD user store manager.
Correct. And when calling the Identity Server scheme 2 endpoint for the users to retrieve the list of users, if behind the scenes it will look up all users from primary and secondary.
Yeah. So if you okay, this is not related to outbound versioning. So this you are simply saying
yes, it's a separated question. It's more related to the scheme server running directly in IS. Indeed, yes, it's not related. It's a different question. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ashen, you can.
It will, yeah, it will work. Bruno, so there's a backward compatible. So all the old one and the new one. So old one also backward compatible. So even if you have two type of user stores, so still it will work. So you are talking about scheme get request, search request, those kind of requests, right?
Yeah, I'm asking about a scenario once you have WSO2 IS with two stores, right? A primary store where you can create your users manually, and the secondary store that actually sourcing users from Active Directory. And then if you call the WSO2 Identity Server a scheme v2 endpoint, for example, the slash users, if you are able to get users from both stores, primary and secondary, that is actually sourcing users from Active Directory.
Yeah, you will get all the users, and even you can, there are search filters available, like you can specifically specify the domains, but if not, it will search all the user stores.
Yes, that is true, and I have seen it in the documentation. However, the users from the Active Directory are not coming, and I have seen in the docs that there is a need to do some claim remapping, but the documentation is a little bit hard to understand. Have you tested, and maybe do you have a better example of a scenario like that?
So
which version you are trying? Yeah. Which version you are trying, Bruno?
It's
5.11.
5.11. Yes, the latest 5.11. Yes.
Yeah, Farah.
No, I was going to ask, like, so do we how do we usually map the unique identifier of a user coming from like Active Directory to our?
Yes, because I have noticed that you can indeed edit claims, and then in the claims you see you have a drop down with the store where you can select primary, and you can even add another one where you can select, for instance, your Active Directory store, and you can say, okay, if it's a username, let's map it with, I don't know, some account name or a CN or something. But that didn't made the trick. So the question here is more, what are the mandatory mappings and what should be the respective mapping value for a secondary store linked with Active Directory for scheme, in this case from WSO2 to be able to retrieve those users?
Okay, so you are not okay, so that means like you are getting some errors in the backend, like some of the claims are not mapped correctly or something.
Well, I
Do you see
didn't.
such errors?
Yeah, I need to check that, of course, but the output just an empty list, so there are no users coming from that call.
So if you are plugged in, so then this means like you have not plugged in Active Directory successfully. You have not created new users to that Active Directory
it
yet.
works. No, this works. This works because if you go into the Carbon UI and you select the store and you click on users, you see the list of users. Everything is okay. So in the UI, you can see the Active Directory users. However, while calling the scheme v2 API to get the users from that specific domain, then none of them are coming. So my question here is, if you guys have documented a way of what exact claims should be mapped in order for this to work.
Yeah, I can understand your question. So basically, like from the Carbon console, it will not use the scheme. So yeah, so so we will have to like check. Yeah, there are a set of mandatory claims that scheme uses. So you need to map them correctly. So we will have to check whether that is available in our documentation. If not, maybe are you in the Slack channel? Maybe we can.
Yes, I can ping you. I can ping you on the Slack channel.
Yeah, you can post that question Slack channel, and then we can like provide you the exact claims should be configured for this.
Okay, appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess like we don't have any more questions. So Bruno, I think you can go ahead and post this on Slack. So we'll continue the discussion there.
Yes, I already did in the users.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. For those
So do
of
we have
others,
any questions from YouTube? Any more questions? No.
Okay, I think we have a question from Alex. Can you share WSO2 configuration to change redirection to local host? This is the question, but I'm not sure like from which video this is coming from, like which session this is related to.
Yeah. The local host, maybe is it related to the Next.js one, Dimuthu's one?
So redirection to local host.
Because in Workplace,
Yeah, I think
demo,
Dimuthu's one.
yeah.
So what's the question again, Fasa?
Yeah, so the question comes as like, can you share the WSO2 configuration to change redirection to local host?
Redirection. Redirection means that we are already running my app in my sample demo. So I am running the WSO2 in the local host. So what should I can't understand the question actually. Redirection to local host.
Redirection to local host. Yeah, I am not sure either. Yeah, so like, so let's like reply to let's reply on the YouTube, like maybe we can post the Slack channel so that like the question can be taken up in Slack. So like since the question is not very clear, let's like continue that discussion in Slack. And I guess like we have like come to the end, and like we had a couple of good questions as well. Um, yeah, so thank you everyone for joining, and like I hope you like learned and like enjoyed the session a lot. And thanks to the like the presenters and for the like having two like very informative and like two very interesting sessions. So we'll meet you on the 24th of February. So as I like mentioned earlier, if you like want to contribute to the next like community calls agenda, like please head over to the GitHub repo, and like so you can find today's call agenda, and you can use this link to like contribute or suggest any item for the next call. Yeah, so thank you everyone, and like hope to see you in the next community call. Thank you.